Well, hit me with some fruity pebbles on this beautiful morning, episode 61 of the Talkin' Shop podcast. I'm Coach Ballgame, and that's the Chopper, Coach Chops. It's a special day. How old are you today, Chaparoo?
God bless me with back of the envelope math. It's very easy. I was born in 1980.
Bang.
So if it's 2023, like my computer's telling me here, I'm 43.
43 years old. So,
Boom.
I would like all the listeners to just go ahead and start singing. Start singing happy birthday to the Chops. What are you going to do on your birthday today? Big day, 43.
Big day today. Yeah, it's a huge celebration we've got planned. My wife got me some coffee.
Yeah.
She got me some Dutch Bros. And yeah, so we're gonna just probably lay low by the house, maybe do some chores, and probably give the dog a bath. It's gonna be fun. Gibby smells a little bit.
Yeah.
Give him a bath. And then we've got a big ball game today. Got a big ball game I get to coach. Some would say I get to coach a ball game tonight, and for my birthday, coach ball game, and it's going to be fun. So league opener. I'm excited for the boys. Can't wait. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing on my birthday than coaching a big ball game under the lights.
Now, is that accurate? Like, that's really what you want to do on your birthday? You want to have a cup of coffee, you want to bathe your dog, and you want to coach a ball game. Like deep down, or you're being authentic, huh?
It's honestly, I can't think of well, maybe not the chores and the bathing of the dog. That might be a bit of an overstatement, but the coaching a ball game, 100%. And the coffee, my wife said, honey, it's your birthday. Can I go get you a cup of coffee? And that's a heck of a way to start the day. You gotta be honest.
Oh man. So how's 43 feel? 43. I just turned 40. You got me by a little bit. How are you feeling? Yeah. Do you feel 43, or is it that like 43 is the new 33 thing?
It's funny that you asked that, because last night I was throwing batting practice and my hip got stuck, right? And I feel like it's still kind of stuck. And it's like, hey, you know what? I'm 43. So it's like, what do I expect? What do you think's going to happen? Yeah. I'm not like our guest coming up today. I'm not doing yoga a couple times a day like he is. He's guarantee his hips feel great.
That's a tease. That's a tease. We're not gonna let you know who the guest is today. Gonna be a fascinating conversation. This I know. But on the
another
topic
lefty,
of,
just like last week.
Oh gosh, that was funny. That was really good. You're getting older, so we got to give you the benefit of the doubt there. That's just a senior moment. He thought Peter Moylan was a lefty, and that was good. That was good stuff. We gave you a hard time the rest of the pod. Today's guest is 15 years in the show, World Series champ, Cy Young Award winner. He's written a book. He's a very talented musician, a singer, songwriter, and he's just got a great story. And I can't wait to unpack it for you, listener. It's Barry Zito. So he'll be coming on as soon as he drops his kids off at school. I got to meet him in Nashville, Tennessee, where he lives, at my sandlot. And that's just a great side effect of going around the country and coaching ball, is I get to meet fascinating people. And when you see a Barry Zito come up with his 3 sons to your sandlot, and then he sits in the bleachers and it's like, man, that he should be out here doing this. But he really dug the sandlot, obviously being an artist himself, the way I marry art and baseball. He vibed with that, and he's super willing to come on and chat. And yeah, it's going to be a great conversation. It's going to be some food. It's going to be some spiritual food for me, I know. And it's something good. On that topic of getting older, though, I got a little haircut, and now that I'm 40, I'm looking at the side. I know the beard's got some gray, but now the side of my hair, I'm seeing a little bit dabble. And on the topic of getting hurt, I can't play Duck Duck Goose anymore. I sprained my ankle playing Duck Duck Goose on my 40th birthday, and now I'm kind of tentative to really run around. How do we combat this, Chopper? How do we combat this this aging hip and ankle and hair thing?
Well, the hair thing, I mean, I've been told by my wife that she likes the silver. So I'm going with that. That's my story. I'm sticking to that.
Good.
That's just wisdom. That's all that is. You kind of earn that. But the other stuff, the physical stuff, I think we tap into a little bit of Barry Zito today, and we ask him, you know, what's his favorite? Is it Bikram? Is it Bikram yoga, or does he go to some sort of a flow? Does he hit up a flow?
Yep.
Some a vinyasa flow. Is he a P90X yoga X guy? So I think we asked our guests. I think we have the right guy on today for our aging bones.
He's found the fountain of youth, no doubt about it. But before he jumps on, man, World Baseball Classic. I gotta chat a few minutes with you on that. Tommy G, our famous producer, attaboy, 1, 2, 3, attaboy. He sent a text over of Kike on in the batter's box in the biggest moment, Puerto Rico, and the whole. I knew the vibe of all the other countries was going to be amazing, you know, and watching these fans, they're literally bringing congas and trumpets and drums and instruments into the bleachers. But man, the Team USA, I've never seen Mike Trout so pumped. When Trey Turner hit the grand slam, heard around the world, I made a video, posted it on my social media, kind of slowed it down. Friend of the pod, Mookie Betts, just going nuts in the on-deck circle. Mike Trout just living his best life. Mark DeRosa just jumping out of the dugout, fist pumping. What's been your favorite part of the World Baseball Classic there, Coach Chad, 43-year-old Chop?
I mean, all of it. It's the emotion, it's the passion, it's the fans, it's the fun, it's the celebrating. It's been awesome. And for anybody that has the opportunity to do it, I think in the past there's some hesitancy for guys to do it. I know we won it in 2017 and maybe that catapulted this opportunity for guys, but it's like, you'd way rather be in that game than a spring training game. Now I know it takes what it takes in the sense of like, you got to prepare a little bit earlier to get ready for the season. So there is some time from your family and your off season that you have to sacrifice. But I mean, you know, we played in those big games. Like, you way rather play in a tournament game than a yawner of a spring training game. And and I think this year has really highlighted it better than any other year. There's been so many good games and just comebacks, and that game against who was it? Was it Venezuela? That game was unbelievable. And then Trey Turner doubles up the next day with 2 more homers. He was a 2-run homer away from the very rare homer cycle in 2 games. He almost hit a home run cycle. And so that's pretty cool. Philly's got to be excited for their team with that lineup with Schwarber and Harper and Trey Turner and JT Realmuto. I mean, it's just a who's who of awesome.
Forget about it. Yeah. And see, like guys like Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt, I mean, they're showing emotion, and Wainwright in his final year getting out there and putting some innings on the board. Yeah, it's almost even more important. It feels more important to them than a playoff game, because it's not just this team that is paying you. They're playing for no money. They're playing for their country. And there's just something different, something special about it. And, you know, the heartbreak when you go down, and then the elation when you win, it's content that I have been overjoyed to watch. And it all culminates tonight. Who you got winning this thing, Coach? Japan versus the USA.
I mean, born and raised, you know, proud to be an American. And
so you're going Japan. You're going Japan.
I obviously, I got to lean Japan. No, I feel good about the boys in the red, white, and blue, but you've got to be so impressed with Japan too. I mean, they're playing some ball. That's a talented squad, as they say. on the banks of Hiroshima. I don't know if there's
Right.
banks in Hiroshima, but you know what I
Probably.
mean. Like,
Yeah.
just got to be Japan. Yeah, they're super impressive. I mean, there's some talented kids. That kid that just threw the other night too, and then the boy. Do you see that this dude rounding like scoring from first? Did you see how fast he scored? My wife, being a sprinter, she was talking about it. 10 seconds from first to home to win the game. Like, that was the guy that scored behind Otani. And
Unreal.
there's just so much talent in Japan. It's wild. You know, they love the game, you know, and that's what's pretty cool. When you love the game, you work extremely hard at it. And Japan is known for their work ethic. In baseball, they're pretty extreme with their work ethic, but I mean, it's pretty cool. I'm excited for tonight. I got USA, but I think it's going to be a good game. And Darvish is on the bump, right?
I think so. Going to be amazing. And last night, their guy was hurling at 102, just blowing cheddar.
That's the kid, right? That's the kid. He's 20, just turned 20.
Unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, you can tell that that I can't remember his name. The guy that ran around the bases like Roadrunner. I mean, he's diligent about his base running. He's worked hard on his base running. Saw that
Good
from
angles,
Goldschmidt the
inside
other night too. Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt,
Yeah.
man, he's a good base runner. Hey,
Goldie's known for that, man.
Man, oh man, Barry's on the show today. I can't wait. What are you excited to chat about with? I mean, come on, one of the best pitchers of our generation. I mean, he had a run there, man. You know, pitching with the A's, 3-time All-Star. You had that triangle. You had Mulder, you had Huddy, you had Zito, and they were in the playoffs every year. And it seemed like the Yankees or the Twins got them in the DS every year. What are you excited to chat about with our guest today?
I mean, it's mental toughness. He's another guy too, where I think of like he's a vibe, you know, he's just kind of a Renaissance man where he wasn't just this, you know, he's contrary to me. Like I'm a baseball guy, you know, that's it. That's all I got. You know, I'm not going to be able to fix stuff around the house. I'm not going to be able to play a tune, but I'm going to be able to talk baseball. But I feel like he's good at everything. So that's what I'm most excited to talk about with Barry, just being well-rounded.
What's up, guys?
Well, speaking of, there he is. He's in the house, and now, bang, we got him. We've got him. Right. Look at this. Look at this setup. I mean, I've seen setups, but
that's a setup.
Barry, it's great to see you. Did you get the kids to school?
Yeah. It's a long drive, man. They go to school about 35 minutes away, so it can be a little hit or miss on the way back. But thanks for your patience, guys.
Oh, buddy, no problem. Meet my pal, Chad Chop. Chopper actually got a gig, I think, right when you left the Giants. Hunter Pence got him a gig throwing beeps. What else were you doing with the Giants, and when did that start, Chopper?
Yeah, good morning, Barry. Yeah, right after you, 2014, I was in there throwing BP and doing instant replay, and Bogey labeled me the hype guy, so I was the hype guy in the clubhouse.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
It was
small
great.
World, man.
I know, isn't that crazy? Yeah, so it was cool hearing stories about you all the time and how well respected you are in that clubhouse. It was pretty cool because I grew up watching you, obviously, and I was a pitcher as well. So when I was younger, so it blew me away watching how awesome you were, just changing speeds and landing that curveball whenever you wanted to, and then to get to be in that clubhouse and just hear how the boys talked about just such a high quality dude. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited to get to meet you, bro.
That's great, man. Yeah, likewise, man.
I got to meet Barry in Nashville, and it's kind of like am I dreaming here moment? I'm coaching a Sandlot in Nashville, and first things first, I see Jimmy from That Thing You Do, Jonathan Shake, the actor. He rolls up with his son, and I'm like, that's the lead singer for the Oneaters in That Thing You Do. And then here comes Barry Zito with his 3 boys. And I'm like, what is going on here in Nashville? I love that everybody's there. Everybody's there. I love that Sandlot. And I think the coolest part about coaching your kids was just watching you and watching the joy you had of just watching your kids play the game of baseball. I want to unpack your whole story from the beginning. Super fascinating, listeners, settle in. But yeah, let's start there with the kids you just dropped off at school. What kind of joy do you
Yeah.
get watching them play the game of baseball?
You know, it's interesting. It was a kind of a later stage for us to actually get the kids into baseball. Well, certainly with the oldest, because I wouldn't say pressured. I mean, you know, I loved baseball when I was 6, and my father was actually a career manager. He was a jazz musician turned career manager, and so he had just come from Vegas and was managing acts up and down the strip in the 70s and 80s. So I was actually born in Vegas. We moved to San Diego, and so he was like developing my talent like he would, you know, one of his clients. And so that relationship, you know, was certainly based a lot around baseball, but in the way I interpreted it a lot was that, you know, I wasn't really lovable if I wasn't performing well. And I don't think that was his intention. But it got pretty intense just as far as like, you know, baseball every day in the backyard, you know, for years and years and years. And it was really enjoyable. But I kind of went the other direction with my first, you know, and I literally didn't want to pressure him to do anything he didn't want to do. But I went too far with it. And it came to a point where I think he was 6, and my wife was like, honey, like, are you going to teach him how to play catch? Because I think like all his friends know how to play catch now, you know? And I was like, oh, I should probably do that, huh? Like, and I think that's what we do as parents. You know, we either do the same, you know, unhealthy pattern, or we go completely opposite, as our parents did with us. And so we started having him play catch, and, you know, it was a little bit of a journey. He went through some vision issues and some other kind of things, but, you know, now he's doing great. And then of course his little brothers are seeing him do it. And I mean, we have a kid that just turned 3, and he's like taking hacks off the tee every day. He goes out by himself and just swings it. And I'm like, it's just funny when you get the later in the birth order. I mean, they're
Yes.
just like self-starters. They're going out there, they're getting after it. They want to be like their bigger brother or sister. Um, so, you know, it is a lot of fun to just go out there, play with them. But I think always remembering behind it all that I don't want him to interpret that his worth is based around his performance. And, you know, that was probably my biggest issue in my life, you know, based on everything I went through as a kid.
That's a tease, listener. We're going to unpack that. I mean, he's written a book called Curveball, and it's dialed in with just raw, authentic struggle, how to get through it. And I think of this conversation for me as good spiritual food, because especially in this season, there's just been a lot of grief, a lot of, you know, family members passing on, and just it almost makes you question some things. It makes you question higher power and spirituality. So that's a tease. I'm digging in, and I'm gonna sit in the pew and listen to some church today for sure. But I think the coolest thing about that Nashville Sandlot experience, and my boots on the ground, Matt, he's the president of the Little League. When Barry Zito comes and watches a Sandlot, my mind goes to, well, Barry should be here. He should be me. He should be the one coaching all these kids. But then you came up to me afterwards and you were like, playing Major League Baseball and coaching a 6-year-old or wrangling 6-year-olds is like 2 different worlds. And having you say that to me, it really opened my eyes to, like, you're very interested and invested in your child. I remember Matt saying, like, you came to the first coaches meeting and you were interested, you were invested in asking questions like, how should we teach this? But just knowing that coaching kids, which is what this podcast is about, it's a whole different ball game, and it's more about teaching love of play and engaging than it is, you know, the actual skills of the game. At the beginning, I mean, your dad, I mean, good gracious, what a story he's had. I mean, maybe we'll start there with dad and Nat King Cole and turning down Frank Sinatra and being your biggest baseball fan as you move to San Diego. Yeah, just unpack dad, because there's a lot of dads out there listening, coaching their kids.
Yeah, I mean, my father, I think a lot of us are just a product of, kind of our family of origin, our parents. And so, you know, both of my parents have passed now. So I think in one way it does, I miss them, you know, and in another way, I feel so grateful for what they imparted onto me, to, you know, the ability to kind of handle myself and in a way they would hope. But, you know, for me, growing up with a dad that was really at home, he was a stay-at-home dad. He was a musician in Vegas, but well, he was with Nat King Cole back in the 60s and all that. And then when Nat died, he didn't have much else to do in New York. And so he moved to Vegas and started managing these acts on the Strip. Like I had said, but for him, you know, he was a self-starter. He was a guy that was actually a product of rape. His father had essentially raped his 14-year-old stepdaughter, and my father was the byproduct of that. And they actually sent him off to an orphanage for 6 months. And because the family was very ashamed, like, how do you even explain, you know, that this 14-year-old just got pregnant? So he actually became raised by this 14-year-old girl's mother, who he called his mom his whole childhood, and found out later that was actually his grandmother. And his sister, Frances, who we always thought was his, you know, much older sister, was actually his mother. And so he was raised kind of in this veil of shame right off the top. And I think that gave him something to overcome. And so, you know, he started doing his music and was a music director in New York and things like that. And eventually got, you know, asked by Nat King Cole and Frank Sinatra to come on the road and be their road conductor. And I asked him, how did you make that decision? It's basically the two biggest singers in the world. And he said, you know, Nat King Cole had a higher moral compass than Frank did. And so that's what drove his decision. And, you know, so I think that self-starter that, you know, even my older sister tells me all the time, like, I don't understand how you have the discipline to do, you know, what I'm doing in music now. I've kind of gone into a cave for 4.5 years and learned everything about production and engineering and certainly songwriting and all the facets of music. But to just give myself the ability to now, you know, work with artists and produce artists and things like that. But to me, that doesn't feel like work, right? It feels like love. It feels like passion and truly exercising this thing that I feel like God put this desire in my heart to do this thing. And I really want to pay attention to that. And so, you know, phase 2 of my life is really me honoring what's that thing in me, that I love to do. And I recently heard this quote, you know, stop trying to figure out what you're going to do, and just, you know, allow yourself to do what you love to do. And I know that's a cliche, but ultimately I feel like what we love to do is what we were meant to do, even if it's quite scary and there's not a lot of, you know, guarantees, certainly financially. But there's a million stories out there of people that just did it, and they plowed through the discomfort, and all these pathways opened up, and it's like, whoa, you know. And I feel inspired by those kind of things. You know, the 4-Hour Workweek is a book for me that really pushed me into those kind of places, and just all about being uncomfortable, all about doing things you're afraid of doing. And that's really where life is, man. I mean, think about our greatest moments as people. That's usually when we were terrified or really uncomfortable that something magical happened. But when we're feeling very safe and like, I can predict how this is going to go, it's like, I mean, do we even remember that a year later?
Yep.
You know?
It's true. Well, I mean, I got to jump into your story, and hearing where you're at now and then how it came about is what's, I just think, going to be so helpful for me, for Chopper, for our listener. And I promise, Chopper, I'm not going to hog the whole interview, but you know, just kind of moving through this path of moving to San Diego, in the backyard every day with Dad, All-American, great high school pitcher, All-American college pitcher at 3 different colleges. You get drafted out of high school, you get drafted after your second year of college, but you don't sign till your third year of college out of USC, first round pick of the A's. And it's like minor league ball was boom, 1 year, and you're on this stage in 2000 against Roger Clemens, against the Yankees in the ALDS. I think the question I have for you as as you got onto that big stage, was were there nerves that hit on you as you finally got onto that stage against Roger Clemens and the Yankees? Or was there this sense of either I'm too young and dumb to feel the nerves, or you felt like this is my purpose, this is where I belong? What was the feeling inside?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I think that, I was just talking to my wife about this, because I'm getting some opportunities in music right now that are much bigger than I thought would happen a couple years ago, but at the same time, not scary. And I think I just told my wife this. I said, for me, like everybody coming up, let's use baseball as an analogy. At some point in that process, when people are coming up, they start to feel intimidated. They start to feel like I'm not good enough for this level, right? They start to feel scared, whatever that thing is. And for some, that happens, when they're 9 years old. For some, that happens in high school when they got a chance to play varsity, and they're like, oh, I don't know how to, I can't, I don't know if I'm good enough, right? And then for some, that happened. For me, that happened after 7 years in the major leagues, right? I signed this huge contract. I didn't have, in my opinion, a spiritual foundation to shoulder the weight of that, because I was taking a lot of credit for my successes, and at the same time, if you're going to take credit, you got to take blame. So I went into a lot of shame about my failures and all these things. But so for me, I had not been on that place yet where I started to feel intimidated. And I will, so when I was in the playoffs, my first season in the big leagues, pitching against Clemens in New York and all these things, I felt prepared for that moment because of the vision, not necessarily that I had, but that my dad had imparted to me for years. My father always had a very big, unrealistic, according to most, vision for my baseball career. And I would encourage mothers and fathers out there to speak life into their children and stop with the fighting for your limitations and, that's not possible, right? And I do think as humans, we can fight for our limitations because it's just, what's that quote? Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, it's that we're powerful beyond measure. I do feel like a lot of us feel more scared of the huge success than kind of the failure that we pretty much know how to deal with. We've been there before. And so I think as parents, we can so easily, if our children are dreaming, which they all do, until we kind of teach it out of them, to impart that vision, that big vision. And for me, I watched that King Richard movie, right, about the Serena Venus Williams and their father and the way that he was speaking vision. And there were unhealthy components of that, but it reminded me of what my father did to me. So coming back to your question about Yankee Stadium, my father always was like, you're a great champion. You're a major league champion. You're going to do big things in this game. 300 games was a goal that we had always set, right? 300 wins, things like that. And I was actually on pace for that after my first 6.5 years. But again, once I signed my big contract, I couldn't shoulder that. And so I went through a real trying time doing that. But, I think that how big we set our goals and where our vision is and where are we going will determine at which point you start to get overwhelmed by everything and start to feel that you can't do it. And so, if your goal is to make varsity on high school and that's the very end of it, then you may or may not feel ready once you did varsity, right? If your goal is to be in the Hall of Fame and win 300, well, varsity in high school, yeah, that's like a natural progression to where I'm going. And so I view it like that, So no, I was not intimidated. I was having fun. This was amazing. I got an opportunity to pitch against Derek Jeter and all these people I'd watched growing up, right? And so it was a very fun experience for me.
Yeah, I was kind of just wondering, like, the high level of play that you had. I mean, you beat Clemens, and then you 2001, 2002 Cy Young Award winner. You're on the biggest stage and you're beating the guys that you collected their cards as a kid. And I was just wondering, like, what do you attest that high level of play to? And what I'm hearing is just that this is the vision that your dad kind of spoke into you, and you felt ready. This was where you were supposed to be. Then you kind of hit a mental wall after Cy Young. What happened? Just talk me through that you're at the top of the mountain. You're the best. You're on pace for what you and your dad's goals are. And then after that Cy Young award, was there a hangover?
Well, it's interesting too. I think the worldly success, right, and the attention from other people, and all the energy of attention and being enamored or whatever that thing is, right, can be very disruptive to your process and to your identity. At least for me, it was. I didn't have a spiritual foundation that I do now, because I grew up New Age, and then I found God in my 30s after relying on my own strength for many years in the San Francisco uniform. And then kind of saying, it's actually God's strength in me, right, that's creating me the ability to do any of this stuff. And that was happening all along. I just wasn't aware of it. But I think because I viewed a lot of the New Age stuff that I was raised with, that this is all up to me. It's all up to me to think this way and to do this and to, think positive and manifest great things in my life. And if, and when life's going good, it's fun. It's like you're patting yourself on the back. You're like, I did it. It's all me. And then of course, when life goes upside down, now it's time to go into the pit of shame, which is what I did. And I took all the blame and I put it all on myself. And how come I can't get myself out of this mess? And so a lot of that is really, after I won the Cy Young, I was like, okay, like here we are at the top of the mountain per se. Now what? And it was difficult to find not the motivation, because I always worked hard, but it's like, okay, now just do it again. So instead of do something new, achieve something new, go to a new place you've never been, it's like you're basically at the place that you have to be now, just stay here. And I think that energy shift was something that threw me off. And I kind of became I was very hungry for a few years. And then it became more of like, now let's just maintain and protect what we've already got. And that's a whole different feeling if you can just, feel that. And so I think it's all fear-based. Yeah. Am I going to lose something that I just achieved, or am I going to attain something new and exciting? Right. And so that's kind of what happened. And I dealt with that in Oakland for a few years. I had decent years in Oakland still after the Cy Young, and the next year was a great year still, even though the wins and losses wasn't. But after that, some ups and downs, after that, I was still kind of the top free agent, I guess, on the market. I came into a free agent class where it wasn't just like a crazy free agent class. So I got the big contract, but it really all started with the Cy Young. And if I were to do it all over again, obviously with the wisdom I have now, I would pay less attention to the accolades and the worldly kind of successes, and stay in my imagination and stay, what brings me joy? What brings me joy is to go out on that field and give everything I got and just throw that ball the way that feels good coming off my hands. And if I'm doing that, Cy Youngs are happening, right? But a lot of that thing that brings me joy got pushed to the side, because now it's about, how do I deliver? Which is kind of a terrifying feeling.
But what the preacher say, Chopper? 100 pence, the results will cripple you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Expectations, results. Yeah. I want to touch on this really quickly, because this is something that I talk about with my high school kids a lot. Barry, I coach at a Christian high school, and my whole thing to them is like, hey dude, like you've got to have your foundation set on something solid. Right. And my belief is that's Jesus. Right. And I can speak to that in like, hey, you guys want to be baseball players. You want to be successful. You want to have everything this world has to offer. Well, I've seen that. And I've seen that at the highest level in this sport. And there's many, many, many men who, though they have everything the world has to offer, and they're miserable. Right. If you set your identity or your foundation in something other than Jesus, it'll let you down at some point. Like, you got to this level, you did all this work, you dreamt, and you were on pace to hit what you thought it was all about. But
Mhm.
inevitably that let you down. That still had a void in your heart, and it still led to fear, where if you have your identity in Jesus, the rock, then no matter what comes your way, you can really kind of, carry Underwood, that Jesus take the wheel, where you can be like, all right, God, this does not make sense. And this is scary, but I'm going to trust in you. And I'm going to look for that silver lining where you can kind of help me grow. Cause we don't usually grow through success. Typically, success inevitably leads to your point, fear, or for some folks, complacency.
Mhm.
But when we go through it a little bit and there's some struggle, oftentimes that's where growth is found, right? So I love that you were able to find that, and it's super powerful. And it's just a message that I try to teach these kids of, like, first of all, dare to dream, right? If God put something on your heart, it's there for a reason, and there
Mhm.
are no limitations. My dream from the age of 2 years old was to be in the major leagues, and it
Mhm.
didn't look like I thought it would as a 2 year old, but I got
Mhm.
to spend 8 years at the highest level, winning 2 World Series rings, with way more joy than I ever dreamt as a player, being able to be support staff.
Mm.
But more importantly, dude, it's like, hey, man, you can choose to put your identity and rely on whatever you want, but everything of this world will let you down at one point or another. I promise. So that's powerful that you've seen that and you're on this other side of it, and you can kind of breathe that life into folks. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love that, and I love that you said that, because that was kind of the whole impetus for me to write this book. Was like, I kind of, just like you said, I had some World Series rings and Cy Young, and drove the fastest cars and had the biggest houses, right? All the worldly, right? Chased women up and down the streets of Hollywood for years, right? And just all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, that they told us that was going to make us happy. And, at the end of it all, it was still like, there's still like a hole in my heart, and I think that's the thing. My manager, when I was writing the book, was like, hey, if you told because my book essentially was just a message to my younger self, that I wish I would have read. And he's like, yeah, but if you told your younger self this, would you have actually made a change? And I said, no, I probably wouldn't have, right? Like, I do think it's experiential. We need to make sure of what doesn't work before we find what does. And, but I would have kind of had that stake in the ground and looked back at it and be like, oh yeah, I remember that book I read. Maybe that book was right. And so I do think, it's important to speak this stuff into the kids, even if they're going to go make their mistakes. They're always listening, and to the parents out there, always just know that they're noticing how you're behaving. They're noticing, your actions probably more than your words, and they're noticing everything. And, a conversation, 10 years later could lead to a change. And so I know there's a lot of parents out there dealing with kids that they might feel are, too far gone, or, whatever. But, I just think it's all making an impact, and we don't have that kind of 30,000 foot view of it all,
This is all great, and this is a big. This was the theme of me for coming into this conversation. Is I'm ready to get deep. If you guys are ready to get deep, could you break it down for me like I'm a 10-year-old boy? You get the big contract with the Giants. You're completely miserable. I've read some articles where you say you're obsessed with the opinions of others, and you lose your identity, you lose your friendships, you hit rock bottom. Like I'm an 8-year-old boy, how did giving your life to Christ equate to authentic inner freedom, or this peace? Because as mentioned, I grew up in a Christian household. My brother's a pastor, and you're just kind of taught this is the direction you go. But now I'm 40 years old, and I see bad things happen to great people. And my wife, same kind of background, but struggles with kind of angry at God sometimes, like why? So I guess speak to everyone of like they're an 8-year-old boy. How do they equate? How did it happen?
I think for me, because I tried a lot of different spiritualities and kind of religious practices through the years, through my 20s, when I was feeling lost and just sad and unfulfilled, and um, it always had to do with something that I had to do, right? Something that I had to like not achieve, but it always came back to me. It's on me to get myself out of this hole. It's always back to me again. But I was actually the problem the whole time, So I think for me, when I, kind of started reading, I started with Proverbs, just very applicable knowledge about, things about life. And that really was like, I'm like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. Um, I, I started to understand that I'm not of my own self, right? And I think in my most egotistical moments when I was at the top of the game and all that, I took credit for everything, and it was all about me and what can life do for me. And when I started to look to what created me, um, which in a sober-minded kind of way is like, duh, like, I don't keep myself alive every night when I'm sleeping. I don't have any idea of the millions and trillions of bodily processes that are happening every second, right? But in our egotistical moments, we'll be like, oh yeah, I did that. And so when I started to defer to God, what are you doing right now in my heart in this moment? What are you speaking into my mind? What are you speaking into my heart? And discernment in that moment is a big thing, right? Is this my voice or is this God's voice, right? And I think a lot of times if it's coming from love and it's coming from that place, it's probably from God. Um, and so for me, I started to realize that, wow, I'm only just playing baseball because I was given the opportunity and the gifts to be 6'4", to have a curveball. I threw a curveball like every other kid at 8, maybe not 8, but 12, whatever. And so I remember a lady came up to me in a bar in 2003 in Philadelphia. We were playing the Phillies, and she was just like, "Oh, you must be so grateful for, that curveball. My gosh." And I literally was like, grateful. I'm like, do you know how hard I've worked for this? And, I was like, it's about me. What are you talking about? Grateful. And so that was very telling of where I was in my kind of spiritual journey at that point. And so now, I literally, honestly could tell you, this is not like a joke, but like, I have no idea how any of this stuff happens with baseball. I mean, I watch baseball on TV now and I'm like, these guys are insanely good. Holy smokes. Like, it's all kind of just a blur of how any of it went down, because I'm not taking credit for it anymore. Which can be quite exhausting, by the way. It just doesn't make sense to me that I was able to go out there and do that and at some points be the best in the game. It's all very baffling. And so where that connects to God is that was all a gift. That was an opportunity. And it was my choice to either honor that opportunity and honor that gift, or take it, rip it out of God's hands and say, no, this is mine. Like a little toddler ripping a toy out of someone's hand. I'm going to do with it what I please, And then, of course, I feel like God's like, okay, well, let's see how that goes for you, like in a very loving way, it's like, and I feel like we're all doing it. We're all trying to rip things out of God's hands and say, no, this is mine, but I did this, but I need the credit. And okay, let's see how that goes for us. And so for me, my years in San Francisco was, how's that going for you? 6 years later. And then I did find this freedom, because I do just feel like I'm an extension of the creator that made me. And my goal is just to honor what the creator's doing to me moment to moment. And if I don't screw up, personally, my belief, I don't think God's mad about it. I don't think I'm going to be punished for any of that. That's me. I don't know what everybody else believes, but I think it's all love all the time. And my own natural consequences, right? Which we teach our kids. There are natural consequences for us adults too. And if we want to live our life in a way that is self-serving and, feeds our deepest desires, whether that's abuse, sexual desires, substance, food, whatever, it's like, these natural consequences are going to teach us what we truly are and what we truly are not.
So we do devotions every day, and I have the high school kids do it. So one of our kids, the other day. I'm like, hey, his name's Noah. I go, Noah, what do you got? Noah, what do you got? That's my boach.
Oh, yeah.
But Noah, I'm like, what are we reading from? He goes, I'm going to go to Revelations. I'm like, oof. All right. It's about to get dark. Let's go. Let's get it. So he starts talking about a lake of fire and all this good stuff. And, he's like, man, so this is how I see this is like everyone else that's doing this worldly stuff. Like they're going to burn in a lake of fire and we're not, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, Noah, thank you for that. Have a seat, bud. All right, boys, real quick, listen up. This is really, really important. Okay. Mm-hmm. What Noah just spoke about is God's judgment, and that's fair. That's a thing. That's real. It's in the Bible. But here's our role in this story. Our role in this story is to bathe in the grace that Jesus Christ provided for us and to love our God and love our neighbor. And that's it. So for Coach Ballgame, for your question of like, dude, there's some really bad stuff that happens a lot. That's real. There's all kinds of stuff that this world does to our hearts that hurt, and it makes us question. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to question God. Absolutely. It's not our job and our role to understand God or understand why this world is the way it is.
Yeah, I don't want to have a petty relationship with God. I want to, I want to have a love-hate relationship with him and get to the bottom of it and deconstruct it all,
Yeah, but honestly, like, I think that's okay. There's plenty of figures in the Bible that question God. I think that's okay. Ultimately, it's our job to love our God and love our neighbor. And when Jesus was pressed and the Pharisees said, dude, what's the most important of all the laws? He hit him with, dude, love your God and love your neighbor out. So when I'm going through it a little bit, I try to serve others. I just try to get out of my own way. And I try to see if there's an area where I can show Christ's love. And there's plenty of times when I weep and I ask God, well, hey, what's up? Why did you do this to me? Like, I thought I was doing everything right. But every single time in my life, when I can look back, and Barry touched on that 30,000 foot view, I see growth. I see blessing. I see all these things that came from that never would have happened if I didn't go through that tough time. And I think that's the message that we want to spread to folks is like, hey, when it seems weird and it seems awful, first of all, pray. Ask God, hey, what's up? What are you doing? Why? Why did you do this? But then trust and know that, listen, at the end of the day, he's got your back. And then try to look for an area where you can serve and love others. And in my life, that's always helped. Just kind of getting out of the way and trying to choose love over, hate or fear or question or revenge. Choose love, dude. Love the dude that wronged you. That'll really mess him up. If you're trying to mess him up, if you're looking for revenge, love the guy that wronged you. Like, go the other way.
That's good, man.
No, it's great. And this is exactly what I wanted and needed. And I kind of want it on a daily basis. Like I said, I don't want this. This is what you were taught when you were 7 years old. Just abide by it. I'm feeling pain. I'm feeling all these. But I love the way you answered it, both of you. And Barry, like when you're mad at God because your friend died, you're making it about me. You're making it about yourself. You took this from me, and there's this selfish core to that feeling. And I know that's the truth. I do, but I need to be reminded of it by my brothers. So it's good food for you. In your story, Barry, it all came full circle when you found this inner freedom. You win a doggone World Series. You beat Verlander, and you get an RBI single off of him in the World Series to boot. How did it feel then? How'd that feel?
Yeah, well, that I have these rings actually here in the studio because not because they actually sat on a shelf in my closet for 10 years. I never even took them out, never wore them out. But now I have it because I'm like, how did this happen? This is crazy, right? So it's like, but I see these rings a lot, and the one time I ever wore these rings in public was at this Italian Hall of Fame thing that I went to. It was the Italian Sports Hall of Fame in Chicago, and so they wanted me to have a speech, and so I had the two rings, and it was such a powerful speech that I put that at the end of my book. But the idea was the contrast between 2010's ring was I was left off the World Series roster and the playoff roster in general. I had to watch the team kind of go to the World Series and win it. And I was actually rooting against them the whole time in my own mind, which I admitted in my book. because I didn't want him to win without me, right?
Sure.
So my ego was in the driver's seat. And, so I really got to solidify how it was not supposed to be done. And I was just empty, and deep in shame, and my heart was, empty. And so that really is what led me to a relationship with God, because it was after that I went into 12-step and codependency and being obsessed with other people's opinions and approval and self-worth. And so then, a couple years later in 2012, I went out into these couple of games, and it was a game in St. Louis that really kind of solidified me as a San Francisco Giant. And it's crazy because I had like 5 or 6 bad years with the Giants. Maybe one was decent, but 2 games essentially like reversed it all, which is just crazy when you think about a 7-year arc of a contract, how 2 games could make me what they say a forever Giant. I'm just happy I get to go back to the city, because I never thought I'd set foot there again. I mean, they were just MFing me out of the room, and yeah, it was crazy. But what happened is I went out and to pitch in the very first playoff game that year in 2012, which was my first time ever in the postseason with the Giants after 6 years. And so all my old ways came back, even though I was a follower of, of God and all these things. My ego was like, all right, now I'm going to prove it to all of them that I'm worth the money, that they hired me there. And I went out in Cincinnati, had a horrible game. And, somehow we came back on that series and won 3 in a row. So I got a chance to pitch in St. Louis in the National League Championship Series, only because Madison Bumgarner, who was pitched game 1 of that series, was kind of in his own head about mechanics. And Bruce Bochy, the manager, did not trust a guy that was thinking about mechanics to go out and pitch in the playoffs. And so they gave me the ball again when I probably should not have gotten it in game 5. And at that point, it was just like, God, you gave me these gifts. I'm only throwing 84, 85. Like, my logical brain says that's not enough to like go out and beat, the Cardinals, who I think are hitting 340 off of lefties as a team, and they're at home. But the logical brain in me had just exhausted, the possibility of me ever winning. So it was like, no, let's trust that this is enough. God's put me in this place. I'm just going to go out there and fully say, I'm going to do what I do, which is throw that ball the best I can. And I'm going to give everything else up. And if I have to go out and give up 10 runs in the first inning, but like having fun and doing my best every pitch, then I can deal with that. But I can't go to sleep the rest of the offseason knowing that I was scared and trying to like control the results. And I don't want the question haunting me of how would this have gone tonight if I actually just trusted that the results are going to handle themselves and I'm just going to have fun and do what I was, kind of put out here in this game to do. And so, I look up in the 8th inning and we're winning 5-0, right? And then, 5 days later, get a chance to start a World Series and essentially the same headspace. And I think the one telling thing about the World Series is, I walked in to Bochy's office. He's sitting with a couple coaches. This is the day before the World Series. It was my day to pitch, right? Like the 5-day rotation was landing on World Series game 1. And I had been prepared for it. And Bochy just looks at me, and obviously he'd been with me the whole time in San Francisco. And he said, can you believe you're starting the World Series tomorrow, game 1? And I just was like, we both laughed, because it was like, this is the last thing anybody would have thought, like Zito, contract bust, would be starting game 1 against Verlander. And we just laughed. And, I remember going home to my wife, Amber, and we were like dancing in the living room, so excited because I got a chance to pitch in a World Series tomorrow. Whereas the old me would have waited until the result was in my favor to dance. But I was just like, oh my gosh, this opportunity has come. It's all out of my control. This is crazy. Who knows what's going to happen? Who cares? I'm just going to go out there and actually enjoy the experience of pitching in a World Series, because it's probably the only time I'll get, you know what I mean? It's just such a flip of a mind space, a headspace. And it was not about me at all. It was about honoring gifts I'd been given. And then, what it's like, once you stop caring about like getting everything, you kind of can receive everything that you ever wanted. But that's the trick, I feel like, in life. You have to not even care about getting it, and then it all comes. But when you're desperate for it and all you want is that, you're never going to get it, because it's like, you can't fool life. You got to be all in with your heart. It's life is a game of truth. You can't fool it.
Man, that's so good. I know you got to get out of here, and that's a great way to kind of end this conversation. I need more. Well, we got to do this again because I
Yeah, we'll do this.
I
This is fun.
love this. I love this conversation. Obviously, the through line is baseball, you know, but these feelings I get of shame for even, you know, questioning God at times, or just the shame or the fear that comes from results versus just the process. It's all themes we talk about on the pod, and I feel like I feel better. I feel good today. I feel better after this chat. So well done.
Well, you know, I want to just encourage you, you know, that I know that you're going through a hard time, but I would say too, like, I think in our most lucid moments, we know, and the truth is in our heart of that God is loving and that nothing, even though in our worldly logical minds and we're living in the horizontal, right? That this shouldn't have happened and why did this happen? And I'm mad about this. But I think when we can pull back from that deep inside and listen, everything's okay. It's all okay, you know? Um, and I know that that's hard in the moments of pain, you know? Um, but I just feel that there's this deep peace washing over all of us in the most turbulent of times. If we can just sit there and get out of the chaos enough to just listen to it, because I think that in the depths of our soul, what we truly believe about the God that we love and worship is that there's nothing that's imperfect or out of place. You know, we just don't have the perspective to see the perfection that is happening right now. You know, so
Yeah.
we're caught up in the turbulence of the waves at the surface, but at the very bottom of the ocean, man, it's just zen, right?
It's true. Yeah, and getting out of your own way, getting out of your own head, and allowing that selflessness to give you the peace you need. Love your song, "The Secret to Life." It's great. Go listen to it, everybody. Your book, amazing. I'm gonna keep reading it over and over again because it's food. And yeah, man, thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah,
And we'll do it again. I'll be in Nashville this summer, so I'll see you there.
we're
We'll
coming
do it
out,
again.
man. You have a gift for what you do. I love it and I support it, and you can feel the love and light coming off you, man, in these camps. So yeah, I just appreciate everything you're doing.
Honored, man. Yeah,
Thanks,
I
Barry.
found my purpose, just like you found yours. So
Yeah, man.
it's a good feeling.
Have a great day, dude. It's great to meet you. And I'm so thankful for your story, and it's powerful, dude. So keep spreading that message, man. And God bless you, and just appreciate you, dude. You're the best. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, man. We'll see you guys later. I
See you,
appreciate
dude.
y'all.
Yes, sir.
See you, buddy.
How
Bang.
about that for church, huh?
I know, man. Well, I knew it. I
Ball
knew
game?
going in, like, when you can talk with somebody who's been through it, who's gotten to the highest of highs and then the rock bottom lowest of lows. He's at the highest of highs, and he's in his jacuzzi in his $8 million house, lonely and crying. And then finding the true answer. Yeah, it's not in the money, it's not in the accolades, it's not what everybody's saying about the, you know, the awards. He found it. You know, he found it with this this relationship with his creator, and it took him out of his own fears. And you know, it hit his father. What a story! And I mean, you know, came from what he came from. His actual father, Barry's grandfather, was right-hand man of Napoleon, I do believe, in the Italian army. So a lot to unpack with his story, but finding that balance of a dad of giving as much as you can to your son, but not being a helicopter parent. I mean, that's a balance that our listener, you know, I'm sure is searching for. And yeah, so much in that. What do you take from Barry?
I think it's an incredibly powerful story, right? I think it's very, very, very strong for my God, dude. Like for our God. I do, because so many people think if I just had X, Y, or Z, I'd be happy. But when you get these athletes that have everything the world has to offer, everything without omission, everything, and they're still not happy, and then they find their joy in Jesus, it's like, all right, anyone else, like, come, like, you that's a walk-off, dude. That's a walk-off in life of, and it's not from this thought or this emotion of like, yeah, I told you guys, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, dude, it's like, go ahead, try everything else. You're still going to have a void. You're going to have a void. It will let you down at some point. Everything else this world has to offer. But if you can get into that solid foundation of Jesus, dude, like, that's it. And I know you talked about like, well, like, how do I reconcile this shame I feel, or how do I reconcile this uneasiness or this questioning of God? Jesus welcomes that. Of like, yeah, dude, I get it. I know it doesn't make sense. I'm really sorry. I'm right here with you. And I think sometimes we see God or Jesus as this like contrary to us, where it's like, hey, dude, you let me down. No, he's next to you. You don't have to look afar. He's right next to you with his arm around you. Like, hey, I'm really sorry that happened. I love you. I'm so sorry that happened, dude. I'm so sorry that you're going through this right now. And there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. But right now, you don't have to get it. And I'm so sorry. And I love you. So that's the power that I see in Jesus, of like, he's not far away, dude. He's right next to us. And if we could just lean into him and lean into his arm, it'll ease our pain, instead of like, wow, how could you let this happen? Well, because he gave us free will, dude. If you want to know the answer, it's because he didn't just preset everything and then we didn't get to choose and we're all robots. No, dude, like, there's free will that comes with choices and natural consequences, like Barry talked about. Yeah. And there's some things outside. Why do people get cancer? Why do little kids die? Why is there SARS? There's so many things you could ask. But here's the thing. When a little baby dies, guess where he goes? He's chilling in heaven, dude. Right? So I know that's an easy way to look at it, but I do think there's tremendous power in these stories. That's why I share them with high school kids. Like, hey, dude, like, chase whatever you want. Totally fine. And we've all chased stuff in our lives. And we've all found pretty quick that the vast majority of those things we chase, they're end roads. Like, it's going to lead to regret. It's going to lead to fear. It's going to lead to being let down. So Jesus is the only one that's undefeated when it comes to that stuff.
And when you connect it to sports and coaching and baseball, there it is again, like the results based thing. You know, you're just when you got to get that next thing, and you got to get that approval from other people. That's also results based. Whereas, you know, Barry found his World Series ring and found his joy just in that presence, that process of I don't care. I don't care what you think of me right now. I don't care that you think I'm a big contract bust, because right now I am finding joy in the way I release this ball right now. And there you go. There's your process versus outcome. And there again, why we keep preaching, parents, don't say things, don't have a tone that's going to cause your kid to think about a result. Definitely not in the high leverage game moment, right? Just say nothing at all. Just smile, just be quiet. And if you do say something, can it take them to a place of joy, presence, and freedom to hit the home run, to strike out, to do it all. Yeah, man, a great one right there. And I think the one deep rooted, lesson that I got from that is, the idea of good, if you do make the good choices and you're doing what God told you to do, then good things will happen to you. I think that's a lie, right? That is a lie. That's not what it's all about. And God isn't turning these knobs and saying, "Oh, let's put an earthquake here because those people made bad choices." No, there's not such a thing. There's not such a thing. But this feeling that Barry Zito got on the mound in the World Series against Verlander of pure joy, presence, and peace, that's God. And when bad things do happen and I have this urge, like the only thing I can do when family members are weeping and struggling is to just get on a knee and just pray for them and just think great thing, just try and put as much love into that person as I can. That feels good. That feels right. So that act of selflessness and loving others, and empathy, like that's, I mean, whatever you want to call it, whatever God looks like, or I think it is that spirit, that feeling you get of love, of empathy. That feels right. So, the words of judgment and shame and guilt and all that stuff is that it's not in God's encyclopedia or dictionary. Those words aren't in there. Kind of like aim the ball is not in a pitcher's dictionary. You don't have that word in it. You have the positive thoughts. So it's good, man. Strong. Deep. We get deep here.
We got deep, and it helps me as a coach because I lose sight of that plenty of times as far as results over process, especially as you get into these moments like today. That's going to have me in a perfect mindset today, because I'm just going to set the vibe of like, hey, let's just go out here and play free. Like, let's go out here and play free, and let's not worry about anything that comes our way. We'll overcome it all, or we won't, but we're going to do it together. Mm-hmm. I told the boys that last night. I said, hey, win, lose, or draw, I choose you guys. Like, you guys are my guys. And I definitely want the win over the lose or the draw, but I'm taking you guys regardless. But for today, that's what I'm writing on the whiteboard in our dugout, is just going to be play free. Like, let's just play free. Let's make it a playground today. And let's go out here and let's go. And like you said, you have the freedom to hit the homer. You've got the freedom to strike out. But I know these kids, they put pressure on themselves because they've got goals and aspirations too. So it's our job as coaches. It's my job as a coach. And I'm in a weird spot because I'm not just the coach. I'm also the dad of, one of our starting 9. And Debbie tells me that all the time. She's like, honey, you got to be able to come home and turn off coach and just be dad. But that's hard for me sometimes. And I got to be better, and we all have to be better. And so, yeah, I loved today. And I didn't know that about Barry. I didn't know that he had this spiritual journey. I knew he was very Zen and very New Age earlier in his career,
because his mom was a pastor in that environment. Yeah. So that's kind of how he grew up with that. Just a crazy story. Yeah, his grandma said apparently there was a voice that said you should go start this new movement, this New Age movement. And her daughter, Barry's mom, became the pastor there. So he's seen it all. He's not a one-trick pony. He has really he's deconstructed and kind of found his path. And that's really why I wanted to chat with him, because it's just great. I want a deep relationship with my creator. I just do. And I know that's a good thing. I really do. So
it's a great thing.
Love.
Well, and I loved how he spoke without ego, right? So it's like,
right.
He spoke without ego, dude. And those are the ones to me are most impactful. The reason why I think so many of us are adverse to church sometimes is because of the vast majority of people in church that are like, you're the worst, you're going to hell. They don't show any sort of like welcome or grace. They forget the grace that they bathe in. And they just think that they're better than everyone else. So when you see that, I have this conversation with my dad a lot, who's great, but I'm like, Dad, all I hear you talk about is how so-and-so is a bad person. Like, does anybody respond well to that? Or do they want you to just come alongside them and love them? Like, literally just show Christ's love. Like, we forget, open your Bible and look at those stories where there's a lot of red writing. Those are Jesus's words. The vast majority of them, and the vast majority of those stories, Jesus was hanging out with prostitutes. He was hanging out with tax collectors who were like the pariah of society. They were the worst of the worst. He hung out with lepers. He hung out with the unholy people. And the only people he had beef with were the Pharisees, which were the holy leaders of their time. So it's like, you call yourself a Christian, someone who follows Christ, look at his actions.
and look at what he did. And if you can do that, you're not going to look at anyone else and judge them. You're just going to love them. You're going to bathe in his grace. And then in turn, you're going to show that grace to others. And that's how we change hearts as coaches, as men, as women, as leaders in a community, is when someone wrongs you, can you show them grace? And I'm speaking to myself. Can I show them grace? I had a recent moment with a coach who wronged me big time, right? And it really, really got at my pride, and I mishandled it. I handled it poorly. And we talk about, does God bless you or does he punish you in moments? No, I don't think he does. I think it all happens the way it happens. But I had an opportunity to coach against this coach, and I really wanted to win that game. Not only did I want to win that game, I really wanted to rub it in, right? We lost that game. Straight up, we lost that game. And you know what? All of my players were like, Coach, I'm sorry. I know you really wanted that one. I'm like, no, dude, like, this is not about you guys. You did not let me down. This is more about my pride, and I made this game about me, and that's a mistake. So, I told the boys, like, boys, you will never let me down. Like, you guys are such a blessing and a joy. And it was really cool because in tough moments, especially after tough losses as a coach, I don't do what most coaches do. We don't come along and we don't talk because I don't want to say something I'm going to regret, right? Like, I don't want to speak out of anger or emotion or being let down. I don't want to speak that into my kids, my players. Like, they didn't let me down. So I go home and I pray about it and I sleep on it. And then when I woke up that next morning after a really tough loss, a really bad loss, you know what the words that God put in my heart to speak to my kids? It was love. It was gratitude. It was joy. And those are the words that I focused on with my players. It's like, I freaking love you guys so much. I'm so thankful to be your coach. I'm so lucky. I have so much gratitude in my heart. You guys bring me joy. You guys bring me joy. So it's like, that's the power in trying to, first of all, did I dwell on it? Like, to your point, like, hey, I feel shame after I screw up. Like, no, I didn't dwell on it. Like, hey, I mishandled that. I have to be better. And I told my players that, hey, dude, that's on me.
And that's a huge part is being able to apologize to your players, to your wife, to your kids, when you've messed up and you've overreacted. And I've done it. I did it this week. Just overreactions, and being able to be raw, authentic, earnest, apologetic when need be. Man, that goes a long way. Not just in coaching, but in all walks.
Yeah. And then telling them too, like, here's the thing, like, yeah, I messed up, but like, I'm going to get right back to being awesome. Like, being awesome is a full-time job. So I'm not going to hang my head. I'm not going to walk around and do this apology tour. Like, hey boys, I'm really sorry, but here's the deal. Like, let's get right back to being great. Cause that's what Christ wants us to be. And that's the power. And the message I want to speak to you of, like, I feel like the devil does a really good job of getting us to do something or getting us to feel this shame, and then just like gripping us in this shame or this failure of like, dude, I screwed that up and I'm the worst. No, you're not. You're the very best. And Jesus loves you and God loves you. And the Bible says that our sins are as far as the east is from the west. That's why Jesus died for us. If we were perfect, we wouldn't need the grace. So like, I want to encourage all of our listeners, when you mess up, own up to it, right? Own up to it quick. Own up to it intentionally with sincerity, and genuinely try not to let it happen again. But then, dude, forget about it. Like, you're forgiven, you're loved. And when you act and you carry yourself with this, I'm forgiven, I'm loved, guess what you can do to others? You can forgive them and you can love them. And that's the power of it. You release those chains, dude. So Barry Zito, dude, what a great guest. And thank you for getting him on here. And thanks for being you. I love you, dude.
Oh, love you, buddy. Happy birthday. It's your birthday.
Happy birthday to us all. Hey, let's go. Everybody, it's everyone's birthday today. I'm sharing the joy. Let's go.
Well done. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks,
we didn't get to trivia, but who got the most hits off of Barry Zito? You want to guess? 26 hits.
Give me some initials. Huh?
Oh,
6 hits?
It's AL West. This hitter's in the AL West. Which is interesting because he was
initials.
Man,
it'll give it away.
Incredible arm and flexibility.
Oh, Ichiro.
Bang.
Let's go. Okay.
He struck. Who did he strike out the most? Who did he ring up the most in his career?
Also AL West.
Mm-hmm.
A lefty.
A righty.
Okay, got him in that curve pitch.
Power hitting righty.
In the AL West, huh? All right.
Way up there on the all-time home run list. Way up there.
Friend of the pod?
Nope.
Okay, not Pujols. And that was probably in the wrong era. No, it's the right era. He played him. A lot of power, righty.
Mariners and Rangers. Mariners and Rangers.
Not A-Rod.
Correct.
Not
A-Rod.
Okay, bang. 2-0. Good, guys. I'm doing well. I like this better.
I know, right?
Let's keep going.
Michael Young. He faced Michael Young the most. As a batter, he faced Chris Young the most. And as a batter who walked him the most, Charlie Morton. How about that?
Charles Morton, huh?
Walked him the most. Bang biscuit. Buddy.
Who was Charlie throwing for at that time?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know him as an Astro and a Brave, but
me too.
Ray, he was deep.
Ray, no. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Rays.
That was good.
Rays.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't with the Rays that long, I don't think. Charlie Morton, though, what a great pitcher. Still doing it. He's 43 at least. No, he's got to be old. I wonder if he's doing yoga.
Go Team USA tonight on Chopper's birthday. Go win your game tonight. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna call my wife. Buddy. Apologize for overreacting earlier this week. I'm gonna love on my kids.
Go.
I'm not gonna feel shame. I have a deeper relationship with my Creator. I hope you do too. Bang.
Appreciate you, buddy. Rake.